They exiled her to a planet no one returned from. She sent back a food blog. Alara stood at the center of the room, her hands folded neatly in front of her, her posture calm despite the murmurs and the heavy eyes fixed upon her. She had expected anger, disappointment, perhaps even fear, but what she felt was a strange mix of curiosity and quiet determination. She had always been curious. That curiosity, they said, had made her dangerous. To them, it was reckless. To her, it was survival. The Council's decision was final. They were sending her to Calypso 9, a planet in the outer reaches of explored space. It was infamous, not for being home to strange life or alien wonders, but for swallowing up every human sent there, leaving no return. The planet had become a warning, a whispered threat among explorers. If someone spoke of it, it was in hushed tones, eyes darting to ensure no one was listening. Calypso 9 was death disguised as a challenge. And yet, for Alara, it was something else entirely, a blank page, a laboratory waiting for a mind willing enough to study it. The transport ship was small, barely more than a pod with enough life support for a single person. Alara watched as the council members filed out, their faces a mix of relief and judgment. They didn't see what she saw. They never did. Where they saw danger, she saw potential. Where they saw punishment, she saw an opportunity to learn, to test herself, to survive. She stepped into the pod with a quiet smile, her hands brushing over the control panels she already understood. Years of training had prepared her for survival in harsh environments, and though the council called her curious nature dangerous, that very nature might just save her life. The launch was smooth, the pod shaking gently as it detached from the station and hurtled through the void of space. Alara's eyes were fixed on the planet ahead, a swirling orb of colors she had only seen in data streams and orbital scans. Calypso 9 atmosphere shimmered in shades of green and violet, strange and alive, a constant storm of cloud formations twisting across the surface. No human had ever returned from it, but Alara felt no fear. She felt anticipation. She could taste the challenge ahead like a flavor on her tongue, and she welcomed it. The descent into Calypso 9 atmosphere was turbulent. Lightning streaked across alien skies, and winds strong enough to bend the pod's hull howled around her. Yet, even as the pod rattled and shook, Alara remained calm. She had planned for every scenario, every possibility. She adjusted the thrusters, letting the craft ride the storms instead of fighting them. There was beauty in the chaos, a rawness that she found exhilarating. The landscape below unfolded like a painting she had never imagined, jagged cliffs of crystalline rock, forests of trees with translucent leaves, rivers that glowed faintly in the dim light of a distant sun. The planet was alive in ways humans had yet to understand, and she would be its first guest. The pod landed with a harsh jolt, dust and alien flora swirling around the small cabin. Alara unstrapped herself, her feet hitting the ground of a planet untouched by human hands. She took a deep breath, inhaling the strange, sharp scent of Calypso 9 air. It was not pleasant in the way humans were used to, but it was real, full of life, full of unknowns. She stepped outside, her boots sinking slightly into the soft, alien soil. Around her, the winds whispered through tall, spiraling plants, their leaves bending without breaking. The sky above was alive with motion, clouds racing in currents she had never seen. It was dangerous, yes, but it was also breathtaking. It was an invitation. Alara set about exploring her immediate surroundings. Her first priority was shelter. She gathered materials from the ground, pieces of broken crystal and twisted vines, and began constructing a small, temporary shelter. She worked quickly, efficiently, knowing that Calypso 9 storms would not wait for her. The wind screamed through the alien trees, but her structure held. It was crude, yes, but sufficient. She felt a sense of satisfaction, a quiet pride in her ability to survive in an environment that had defeated countless others. For Alara, this was only the beginning. Once the shelter was secure, she turned her attention to sustenance. She had prepared for this, bringing a small supply of rations, but she knew that long-term survival would require adaptation. She began to examine the plant life around her, taking careful notes, making small samples, and testing cautiously. Some plants were bitter, some tough, some had strange textures that made her pause. But slowly, methodically, she began to discover patterns. Certain colors indicated sweetness, others signaled nutrients, and a few were dangerous. She documented everything, not just for herself but for the knowledge it represented. Knowledge was survival, and she intended to keep both. As she prepared her first meal using alien plants, she felt a surge of exhilaration. She had never cooked with ingredients like these before. Each leaf, each fruit had a flavor unlike anything she had known. Some were tangy, some earthy, some had a sweetness that made her pause in wonder. She combined them carefully, experimenting, tasting, adjusting. Her first meal was simple, a stew made from leaves and a fruit that glowed faintly under the alien sun, but it was a triumph. She had eaten safely on a planet that no one expected her to survive. She smiled at the small victory. Survival was more than staying alive. It was understanding, adapting, and thriving. And she was doing all three. Night fell on Calypso 9, and with it came a darkness deeper than space itself. The stars above were strange, unfamiliar constellations twinkling with alien light. The wind carried new scents, new sounds, the whispers of creatures hidden in the dense foliage. Alara sat by the small fire she had managed to coax from dry alien material, her notebook open beside her. She began to write, not a log of danger or despair, but a record of discovery. Her first entry was simple, almost playful. The fruit is surprisingly sweet, the leaves crisp in a way no earth plant is. I will call this meal the beginning. Even in exile, even in a place that had swallowed so many, she could find joy. Humanity, she thought, was defined not by fear but by curiosity, by courage, by the ability to make even the impossible beautiful. The following days passed in a rhythm of discovery and adaptation. Alara learned to anticipate the planet's storms, to read the signs in the wind and clouds. She learned which plants could be eaten raw, which needed cooking, which could be combined safely. She began creating small tools, simple devices made from vines and crystal shards, everything designed to make life more manageable. Each success reinforced her confidence. Each small triumph was proof that humans could survive anywhere if they used their minds, their hands, and their curiosity. Calypso 9 was no longer a prison. It was a challenge, and she was meeting it head-on. Soon, she began experimenting with more complex meals. She found an edible fungus with a spongy texture and a subtle sweetness, combined it with a crisp, tangy leaf, and cooked them together over her small fire. The flavors melded in unexpected ways, producing textures and tastes she had never imagined. She wrote detailed notes, sketches of her techniques, photographs captured with her small portable scanner. Her food was not just sustenance. It was a form of art, a statement of human creativity in a place designed to defeat humanity. She was proving that intelligence, patience, and curiosity could triumph over the most hostile conditions. Alara began transmitting short messages back to Earth. At first, she expected skepticism, perhaps even derision. But she framed her messages in a way that emphasized exploration and discovery rather than danger. I have found new plants. Some are delicious, she wrote, including small descriptions, textures, even approximate flavor profiles. Her messages were brief, but the excitement in them was palpable. Back on the space stations and colonies, humans read her reports with growing fascination. No one had expected a survival report from Calypso 9 to be about food. Yet here it was, humanity thriving, adapting, and even enjoying life in the face of what had been written off as death. The planet continued to challenge her. Storms arrived without warning, sudden gusts that tore through the alien forest, driving rain that soaked her makeshift shelter. Alara learned to work with the wind, to use it to dry food, to cool her fire, to signal her location. She studied the creatures that lived nearby, small, elusive beings that observed her from a distance. She did not fear them. She watched, learned their patterns, and adapted. Her understanding grew every day. Humanity's greatest strength, she thought, was its ability to observe, to learn, to adapt, and to find joy even in the harshest conditions. Calypso 9 would not defeat her. Weeks passed. The first frost of the planet arrived, delicate and crystalline, covering the leaves of alien plants in shimmering patterns. Alara marveled at it, capturing photographs and samples. She prepared a special meal combining several newly discovered ingredients. She wrote a message to Earth, sending it with encrypted transmission. I have created a stew from 5 new plants. It is rich, complex, and surprisingly satisfying. Humans can survive here. Not just survive, we can thrive. The message sparked curiosity across colonies and stations, sending waves of excitement through those who had only ever heard Calypso 9's name in whispers of fear. As she sat by her fire that night, tasting the fruits of her labor and surveying the alien sky, Alara felt a sense of quiet triumph. She had arrived where no one expected her to survive. She had adapted, learned, and even begun to enjoy life. Humanity, she realized, was not defined by the places it feared, but by the places it dared to explore, by the challenges it overcame, and by the curiosity that refused to be silenced. Calypso 9 had been meant to punish her. Instead, it had become her laboratory, her canvas, her stage, and she intended to make the most of it. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself a full, contented smile. She was alone on a planet that had swallowed others, facing storms, unknown creatures, and strange new foods. And yet she was not defeated. She was alive. She was learning. She was thriving. Humanity had sent her into the impossible, and she was proving what humans could do: adapt, create, and even find joy in the unlikeliest of places. The stars above Calypso 9 sparkled in alien constellations, but to Alara, they seemed to twinkle with approval, as if acknowledging the first human to thrive where all others had failed. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the wind and distant thunder wash over her. There was a long journey ahead, countless meals to prepare, countless discoveries to make, but she felt ready. The planet had tested her, and she had risen to the challenge. Tomorrow she would explore further. She would find new plants, new flavors, new ways to survive. She would send her discoveries back to Earth, one meal at a time. And in doing so, she would show humanity what it truly meant to thrive, even on a planet no one had returned from. The morning light on Calypso 9 was unlike anything Alara had ever seen. The sky was streaked with shades of green and violet, casting a strange glow across the alien landscape. Even after weeks on the planet, she still felt a thrill every time she stepped outside her shelter. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of unknown flora and minerals. Every breath reminded her that she was alive, and more than alive, she was thriving. Alara's first task each day was to explore the area around her shelter. The planet was full of surprises, and she had learned that curiosity was as vital as food or water. She moved carefully through the twisting forests, her boots brushing against soft, spongy ground that seemed to adjust under her weight. Plants stretched upward like living sculptures, leaves shimmering faintly in colors that had no name in any human language. She carried her small notebook, jotting down observations, drawing quick sketches of anything that seemed edible or useful. It was on one of these walks that she discovered her first true challenge: a grove of tall, thin plants with translucent pods hanging from their branches. The pods pulsed gently, as if they were breathing. Alara crouched to examine one, her fingers tracing the smooth surface. The plant seemed alive in a way that reminded her of coral back on Earth. She used a small scanner to check the pod's composition, her eyes widening at the results. "These are safe," she murmured to herself, "and interesting." They had a firm, jelly-like texture and a faint sweetness. When she cooked them over her small fire, they softened and released an aroma that was unlike anything she had ever smelled. She tasted the first bite slowly, savoring the flavor. It was delicate, light, and strangely comforting. A small smile spread across her face. She had discovered a new ingredient, a meal no human had ever eaten before. Alara began to experiment, combining the pods with other edible plants she had found. Some combinations were failures, bitter, slimy, or overpowering, but each failure taught her something new. She learned which textures complemented each other, which flavors could balance, and which methods of cooking worked best. It was like solving a puzzle, and every successful meal was a small victory against the planet that had been written off as deadly. The days passed quickly, filled with work and discovery. Alara began to notice patterns in the planet's ecosystem. Certain plants grew only near water sources, while others thrived on higher ground where storms were strongest. Some creatures, small and shy, appeared to feed on the fruits and leaves she was experimenting with. She observed them from a distance, learning their habits without disturbing them. Humanity's greatest strength, she realized, was observation. To understand the world, one must first pay attention, and Alara was nothing if not attentive. One afternoon, a sudden shift in the wind caught her attention. The trees bent sharply, and a low, rolling sound echoed through the valley. A storm was approaching faster than she had expected. She dashed back to her shelter, gathering her cooking supplies and securing her notes. The wind screamed through the alien forest, whipping leaves and dust into the air. She sheltered herself inside her small structure, listening as lightning streaked across the sky and the storm raged around her. Rather than fear, Alara felt excitement. This was part of the challenge. The planet would test her, push her to her limits, but she would adapt. She moved her fire closer to the center of the shelter, ensuring it remained lit despite the wind. She checked her stored food, ensuring nothing was lost or damaged. The storm lasted for hours, but she endured it, making small adjustments and learning from every gust of wind and crack of thunder. By the time the storm passed, she was wet, tired, but exhilarated. Survival was not about avoiding difficulty. It was about meeting it and finding solutions. After the storm, the landscape had changed. Some trees had fallen, new plants had been exposed, and water had pooled in places it had never been before. Alara saw opportunity in every change. She explored the area, collecting new samples and documenting the altered environment. The storm had revealed a hidden grove filled with small, luminescent fruits. They glowed faintly under the violet light, hanging in clusters like tiny stars. Carefully, she harvested a few, noting their location and appearance. Back at her shelter, she tasted the fruit. It was tart and tangy, with a crisp texture that reminded her of apples on Earth. Encouraged, she experimented with combining the luminescent fruit with the jelly-like pods she had discovered earlier. The combination was unexpectedly delightful. The tartness of the fruit balanced the sweetness of the pods, and the textures complemented each other perfectly. She cooked them together, adding small pieces of edible leaves for texture, and tasted the result. It was a masterpiece of flavors she had created from alien ingredients on a planet that had killed everyone else. She wrote in her notebook, carefully recording the recipe: pod and fruit stew, soft, tangy, sweet, surprising. Humans can adapt. Humans can create beauty anywhere. She observed them for days, noting their reactions to her cooking. When she left small samples of food near them, they approached cautiously, sniffing and tasting before retreating. She smiled, realizing that even the creatures of Calypso 9 were learning from her. There was a kind of mutual respect forming, a silent understanding that neither she nor the creatures intended harm. Her transmissions back to Earth became more frequent. At first, they were short messages about survival and safety, but now they included descriptions of her culinary discoveries. Scientists and food enthusiasts alike were captivated by her reports. They were amazed that someone could not only survive on Calypso 9, but also create meals from its alien flora. Alara's descriptions were detailed, her sketches precise, her excitement palpable. Humanity was beginning to see the planet not as a tomb but as a place of possibility, all because one human had refused to surrender to fear. The planet, however, was not without its challenges. Some plants were toxic, some unpredictable, and the weather remained volatile. One morning she discovered a patch of plants with a strange, oily coating. Curious, she carefully tested a small sample, noting the smell and texture. The plant was bitter, almost acrid, and she realized it could not be eaten without processing. She experimented, using heat and other ingredients to neutralize the bitterness. After several attempts, she created a paste that was not only safe to eat but surprisingly flavorful. Each experiment, each failure, and each success reinforced her belief that humans could adapt to any environment if they applied intelligence, patience, and creativity. As weeks turned into months, Alara's routine became a balance of exploration, cooking, and observation. She had transformed her small shelter into a functional laboratory and kitchen, a place where human ingenuity met the wildness of an alien world. Her meals grew more sophisticated, combining multiple alien ingredients in ways that brought out unique flavors. She began to document not only taste but texture, aroma, and nutritional value, thinking of the day when humans might colonize planets like Calypso 9. Every discovery she made was a step toward that future. Her connection with the planet deepened. She learned to read the signs in the wind, to anticipate storms, to find hidden water sources, and to locate edible plants that only grew in specific conditions. She observed the behavior of creatures and the growth patterns of flora, understanding the delicate balance that allowed life to thrive in such a harsh environment. Her respect for Calypso 9 grew. It was not merely a place of punishment, it was a living, breathing ecosystem, complex and beautiful. And she, through curiosity and determination, had become a part of it. One evening, as the twin suns of the planet set, casting long shadows across the landscape, Alara prepared a meal from the fruits of her labor that day. She combined the luminescent fruit, the jelly-like pods, the neutralized paste, and a few tender leaves she had discovered after the storm. She cooked them carefully, adjusting the fire and tasting as she went. The result was astonishing, a combination of textures and flavors that seemed to capture the essence of Calypso 9 itself. She photographed the dish, wrote detailed notes, and transmitted them back to Earth. Her message was simple but powerful. I have discovered new foods. I have created new flavors. Humans can thrive here. We can survive. We can adapt. We can create. The transmission sparked excitement across human colonies, inspiring scientists, chefs, and explorers alike. What had once been a death sentence was now a story of possibility, a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. Alara sat back, tasting the meal she had prepared. The flavors were strange but comforting, foreign yet familiar in a way that reminded her of home. She thought about the humans who had doubted her, the council who had sent her away, and she felt no bitterness. They had tried to test her, but she had turned their punishment into an opportunity. Calypso 9 had not defeated her. She had learned from it, adapted to it, and even begun to enjoy it. Humanity, she realized, was defined not by the places it feared, but by the places it dared to explore. The stars above sparkled faintly through the violet clouds, distant and mysterious. Alara closed her eyes for a moment, listening to the hum of the alien forest, the gentle rustle of leaves, the distant calls of creatures she had yet to understand. She felt a sense of connection to the planet, a recognition that she was part of its story now. Survival was no longer enough. She wanted to thrive, to learn, to create, to leave a mark not of conquest but of curiosity and understanding. Tomorrow would bring more exploration, more ingredients, more meals, and more discoveries. Alara felt ready. She had learned to live on a planet that no human had survived, to turn danger into opportunity, to create sustenance and joy where none existed before. Humanity's strength was in its mind, its hands, its determination, and she had all three. Calypso 9 was no longer a prison. It was a playground, a laboratory, a canvas. And she was ready to paint her story across it, one meal at a time. As she drifted to sleep, the hum of the alien world around her seemed to echo her thoughts. Humans could survive anywhere. Humans could adapt to anything. And humans, she knew, could turn even exile into triumph. The weeks on Calypso 9 had transformed Alara. The planet was no longer a strange, frightening place. It was a world to understand, a puzzle to solve, a source of endless fascination. She had learned to navigate the twisting forests, anticipate storms, and find water and food in places that seemed impossible. Every day was filled with discovery, every meal a new experiment in flavor and sustenance. And through it all, she kept detailed notes, sketches, and samples, sending encrypted messages back to Earth whenever she could. Her transmissions had grown more elaborate. What had begun as simple survival updates had turned into detailed culinary reports. Scientists, chefs, and explorers on Earth were captivated. No one had expected anyone to survive on Calypso 9, let alone create meals from its alien flora. Yet Alara had done both, and her updates inspired curiosity and hope. She was teaching humanity something essential. Survival was not enough. To thrive, one had to observe, experiment, and create. One morning, she woke to a cool mist settling over the forest. The ground was damp, the air filled with the scent of rain and alien vegetation. She stepped outside, her boots sinking slightly into the spongy earth, and surveyed her surroundings. The plants shimmered with tiny droplets, reflecting the violet and green sky above. It was beautiful, almost serene, and she felt a moment of calm in the middle of the alien wilderness. Alara set out to explore a nearby valley she had not yet visited. The terrain was uneven, covered in jagged rocks and dense vegetation. She moved carefully, scanning for edible plants and observing the creatures that had begun to show signs of intelligence. Small, curious beings with delicate limbs watched her from a distance, retreating when she approached but never entirely disappearing. She marveled at them, noting their cautious behavior. They seemed to recognize that she was different, perhaps even learning from her presence. In the valley, she discovered a grove of plants unlike any she had seen. The stems were translucent and the leaves radiated a faint, silvery glow. Clusters of small, spherical fruits hung from the branches, and when she touched them, they pulsed softly under her fingers. She took a careful sample, placing it in her field kit. Her scanner indicated high nutritional value, and preliminary tests suggested that the fruits were safe to eat. Excitement bubbled inside her. Another discovery meant another chance to experiment, another opportunity to push the boundaries of human knowledge. Back at her shelter, Alara prepared the fruits for cooking. She decided to combine them with some of the jelly-like pods and luminescent fruits she had discovered earlier. The process was meticulous, requiring careful slicing, mixing, and heating. She adjusted the fire's intensity, tested textures, and tasted at every stage. When the final dish was ready, she sampled it slowly, savoring the balance of flavors. The tartness of the new fruits complemented the sweetness of the pods, while the subtle glow of the luminescent fruit added a surprising texture. It was a triumph, a creation that was uniquely hers and entirely alien at the same time. Alara documented everything. She sketched each plant, noting its appearance, texture, and growth patterns. She described the flavors in her notebook, using comparisons to Earth foods when possible but also inventing new terms for tastes that had no equivalent. Her transmissions to Earth grew more detailed, including instructions for preparation, cooking methods, and even observations about the creatures that interacted with her meals. The response from humans was electric. Messages poured in, expressing admiration, curiosity, and excitement. She had become a symbol of human adaptability and creativity, a living testament to what humans could accomplish when faced with impossible odds. One evening, while preparing a meal, she noticed movement at the edge of her shelter. The small creatures that had been observing her for weeks approached cautiously, their eyes bright and alert. They sniffed at the air and edged closer to the glowing fruits she had laid out. Alara watched, fascinated, as one of the creatures tentatively tasted a piece of fruit. It paused, then seemed to gesture in a way that suggested approval. Slowly, the others followed, sampling the food with care. It was a moment of connection, a silent acknowledgement between species. She realized that even on a planet thought to be inhospitable to humans, it was possible to form understanding and cooperation with the native life. The next morning, she experimented with combining new ingredients in ways she had not tried before. The jelly-like pods, luminescent fruits, and translucent spherical fruits created flavors she could hardly describe. She recorded the process meticulously, noting how heat, timing, and combinations affected taste and texture. Cooking had become more than a necessity. It was a form of exploration, a way to interact with the planet, to learn its secrets, and to express human ingenuity. Each successful dish reinforced her confidence and strengthened her resolve. Alara also began exploring further distances from her shelter. She discovered small streams flowing with water that shimmered with mineral content, perfect for preparing meals and sustaining life. She located patches of edible leaves and roots hidden beneath thick moss and rocks. With each new discovery, her knowledge of Calypso 9 ecosystem expanded. She began mapping areas, noting where edible plants grew in abundance, where the water sources were reliable, and where storms struck most frequently. Her careful study allowed her to plan her explorations and meals efficiently, ensuring that she could thrive even in unexpected circumstances. One particularly challenging day, a sudden gust of wind knocked over part of her shelter, scattering supplies and ingredients. Alara worked quickly, securing her notes, salvaging food, and reinforcing the structure. It was exhausting, but she did not despair. Every setback was an opportunity to learn. She discovered that certain plants could be used to strengthen her shelter, while others could act as insulation against the cold nights. Adapting to the planet required creativity, patience, and careful observation, all traits humans possessed in abundance. She smiled at the realization. Calypso 9 might have seemed impossible, but with determination and ingenuity, she was making it a home. The days passed, and Alara's meals became more sophisticated. She experimented with layering flavors, adjusting textures, and creating combinations that highlighted the unique properties of each plant. She discovered that certain fruits could be roasted to bring out sweetness, while others required careful cooling to maintain their subtle flavor. She recorded each experiment, refining her techniques and sharing the results with Earth. The transmissions continued to spark interest, not only in culinary circles, but also among scientists studying survival and adaptation. Humans were beginning to see Calypso 9 not as a death sentence, but as a laboratory for ingenuity. Alara also paid close attention to the creatures of the planet. Some began to approach more confidently, observing her with curiosity rather than fear. She learned to predict their behavior, leaving small portions of food for them while she worked. Over time, the creatures seemed to recognize her as a non-threat, and a silent bond formed. She was teaching them about human ways, and they were teaching her about Calypso 9. It was a mutual exchange, a lesson in observation, patience, and respect. Humanity had always thrived through cooperation, and here, even on a distant alien planet, that principle held true. One evening, after preparing a particularly successful meal combining several new ingredients, Alara sent a detailed transmission back to Earth. She included photographs, sketches, descriptions, and even advice for future explorers. Her message was simple: humans can survive here. We can adapt, learn, and thrive. Calypso 9 is not a tomb, it is a place of discovery. The response was immediate and enthusiastic. Scientists and explorers praised her ingenuity, chefs marveled at her culinary creativity, and students followed her transmissions with fascination. She had turned isolation into inspiration, proving that human curiosity and resilience could overcome even the harshest challenges. Alara spent the night reflecting on her journey so far. The planet that had been intended to punish her had become a place of growth, learning, and achievement. She had survived storms, navigated dangerous terrain, discovered new ingredients, and created meals that were entirely alien yet delicious. She had formed bonds, however subtle, with the creatures of Calypso 9. And she had sent messages back to humanity that inspired hope, curiosity, and pride. The stars above twinkled faintly through the violet clouds, distant and mysterious. Alara closed her eyes for a moment, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. Humanity had faced countless challenges, yet it had always found ways to adapt and thrive. She had done the same on this alien world. The lessons of Calypso 9 were clear. Survival was important, but understanding, creativity, and curiosity were even more vital. Through observation, experimentation, and care, humans could turn even the most hostile places into opportunities for growth and discovery. As she drifted into sleep, the soft hum of the alien forest surrounding her, she felt a sense of connection to Calypso 9. The planet was no longer a threat. It was a partner in her journey. She had proven that humans could adapt, learn, and thrive anywhere, even on a world that had claimed so many before her. And she knew that tomorrow would bring more discoveries, more experiments, and more opportunities to push the limits of human ingenuity. Alara's story was becoming more than a tale of survival. It was a story of triumph, of curiosity, and of the human spirit. She had turned exile into exploration, danger into opportunity, and isolation into inspiration. Humanity could do incredible things when faced with challenges, and she was living proof. Calypso 9, once feared as a place of death, had become a stage for human ingenuity, a testament to the resilience, creativity, and curiosity that defined her species. With that thought, she allowed herself to rest, ready for the next day's adventures. The planet awaited her, full of unknown plants, mysterious creatures, and countless opportunities to learn, create, and thrive. And she, Alara Miles, was ready to meet it head-on, one meal, one discovery, one step at a time. Alara woke to another alien sunrise, the sky a swirling tapestry of green, violet, and gold. Months had passed since her arrival, and the once terrifying planet had become a familiar, though still unpredictable, companion. Her shelter, once a simple makeshift structure, had grown into a well-organized base. She had reinforced it with sturdy alien materials, using vines and crystal shards to create walls that could withstand the storms that frequently swept across Calypso 9. Her little kitchen area was tidy, equipped with makeshift tools and cooking surfaces she had built herself. Every day she felt stronger, more capable, and more connected to the world around her. She started the day with a routine exploration, venturing further than before. The landscape changed constantly, hills giving way to valleys, crystalline rock formations shimmering in the morning light, rivers winding through strange forests. Alara moved carefully, keeping an eye on both flora and fauna. The small creatures she had grown familiar with observed her from a distance, and she felt a growing bond with them. They were cautious but curious, and over time, they had begun to approach closer when she laid out portions of her meals. She was learning as much from them as they were from her. In a hidden glade, she discovered a grove of plants with broad, flat leaves and berries that radiated a soft, pulsating light. The berries were slightly larger than grapes and emitted a sweet, earthy aroma. Alara carefully harvested a few samples, scanning them with her portable device. The results were promising: high nutritional value and safe for consumption. Excited, she returned to her shelter to experiment. She had learned that the best meals came from combining flavors, textures, and cooking methods. She began preparing the berries with some of the luminescent fruits and jelly-like pods she had previously discovered. She roasted the berries lightly over her fire, releasing their natural sweetness, and combined them with chopped pods and fruit, simmering them together. The aroma filled her shelter, rich and inviting. The first taste confirmed her excitement. The combination was exquisite, the flavors balancing perfectly, the textures complementing each other. She recorded the recipe in her notebook, noting each detail carefully. This was not merely survival, it was creativity. Humanity had the power to transform even alien ingredients into something meaningful. Encouraged by her success, Alara planned a larger experiment. She wanted to explore the possibilities of preservation. Calypso 9 weather was unpredictable, and she realized that if she could develop ways to store her food, she would increase her chances of thriving long-term. Using a combination of techniques she had learned from Earth and new methods adapted to alien materials, she began to create dried fruits, preserved pods, and compacted nutrient cakes. She tested each method carefully, ensuring taste and nutritional value remained intact. Her efforts paid off, and soon she had a supply of food that could last for weeks. The creatures around her shelter had become a silent audience to her experiments. They watched with interest as she worked, occasionally tasting the preserved food she left for them. Their reactions were subtle but clear. They were learning to trust her. Alara marveled at this small yet meaningful connection. On a planet that had once been thought deadly, she had created a system of understanding, communication, and coexistence. It was proof of humanity's ability to adapt and flourish in any environment. Alara's transmissions to Earth had grown more elaborate. She included detailed descriptions, photographs, sketches, and even tips for potential future explorers. Her reports were no longer simple messages of survival, they were guides for thriving. Scientists were fascinated by her notes on plant chemistry and nutrition, while chefs marveled at her innovative combinations. Even students and children followed her updates eagerly, inspired by her curiosity and resilience. Her exile, intended to isolate her, had instead made her a beacon of human ingenuity. One day, while exploring a nearby ridge, she discovered something extraordinary. A series of shallow pools reflected the strange sky above, their surfaces dotted with tiny, glimmering plants. She approached carefully, noting the movement of the water and the interaction of the plants with their environment. The glimmering plants had a sweet, refreshing taste when tested, and they seemed to combine well with several other ingredients she had discovered. She experimented with roasting and steaming, creating a dish that was delicate, aromatic, and surprisingly nutritious. She photographed the results and recorded the method meticulously. Each success added to her growing understanding of the planet's potential. The weather, however, remained unpredictable. A sudden storm forced her to take shelter, and she watched as lightning danced across the sky, striking the crystalline rock formations in a spectacular display. The creatures she had grown familiar with scuttled to safety, and she marveled at their instinctive knowledge. She realized that survival was not just about ingenuity and preparation. It was also about observation and learning from the environment. Calypso 9, she thought, was teaching her as much as she was learning from it. During one calm afternoon, Alara experimented with combining multiple new ingredients into a single complex meal. She used the luminescent fruits, jelly-like pods, glimmering pool plants, and the soft, sweet berries she had harvested earlier. She layered flavors, experimented with textures, and adjusted cooking times carefully. When the meal was ready, she tasted it slowly, savoring each bite. The dish was unlike anything a human had ever experienced, a harmony of flavors, textures, and aromas. She wrote in her notebook, "Human creativity can transform the alien into something beautiful. Survival is not enough. We can thrive and create." Small groups of them would approach her food at specific times, often mimicking her movements or responding to her gestures. She realized that these subtle interactions were a form of communication. By observing them, she could predict environmental changes, locate new plants, and even find water sources. The bond between human and native life was growing stronger, a silent partnership that emphasized observation, patience, and respect. Alara's experiments in cooking and preservation became more sophisticated. She began creating multi-step meals that required careful timing, layered flavors, and combinations of textures. She tested each method repeatedly, ensuring the results were consistent and safe. These meals became the subject of her transmissions, which she shared in detailed reports with Earth. Her audience grew, fascinated by her ingenuity and resilience. Humanity was witnessing a living example of adaptation, creativity, and triumph against impossible odds. One evening, as she prepared a special meal combining several newly discovered ingredients, she paused to observe the sunset. The twin suns of Calypso 9 dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the valley. The sky shimmered with colors she could not name, and the landscape glowed softly under the fading light. She realized that this planet, once feared and shunned, had become a place of wonder and opportunity. Every plant, every creature, every gust of wind held lessons waiting to be understood. Alara's thoughts turned to Earth. Her transmissions had sparked excitement and curiosity, but she knew that true understanding required more than words and images. She was documenting not just recipes, but techniques, observations, and discoveries that could help humans thrive on other worlds. She carefully recorded every detail: the growth patterns of plants, the timing of storms, the behaviors of creatures, and the effects of her cooking methods. Her work was becoming a blueprint for survival and adaptation, a testament to what humans could accomplish with intelligence, creativity, and perseverance. The creatures around her continued to grow more confident. They watched her with fascination, learning from her actions, and she in turn learned from their behavior. By studying them, she could anticipate environmental changes, locate resources, and refine her methods. She realized that survival was not a solitary endeavor. It was a process of observation, interaction, and adaptation. Humanity's strength lay not only in technology but in curiosity, creativity, and the ability to learn from the world around them. Alara's meals became increasingly elaborate. She experimented with layering flavors, adjusting textures, and combining multiple ingredients in innovative ways. She discovered that some plants released unique aromas when roasted, while others enhanced the flavor of sweet fruits when steamed. She tested each combination carefully, documenting results and refining techniques. Her creations were not only nutritious, but also pleasing to the senses, a celebration of human ingenuity and adaptability. As the weeks went by, she began to explore more distant regions of the planet. She discovered hidden valleys, shimmering pools, and groves of plants with unique textures and flavors. Each discovery added to her growing understanding of Calypso 9 ecosystem. She tested each plant carefully, experimenting with cooking methods, preservation techniques, and flavor combinations. Her notebook grew thick with observations, recipes, and sketches, a detailed record of human creativity applied to an alien world. Alara's transmissions to Earth became more detailed and frequent. She included photographs, sketches, and precise instructions for cooking and preparation. Scientists studied her notes for insights into alien biology and chemistry, while chefs marveled at her innovative combinations. Her reports inspired hope and curiosity, demonstrating that humans could adapt, thrive, and create even in the most hostile environments. She had transformed exile into exploration, danger into opportunity, and isolation into inspiration. One night, after a long day of cooking and experimentation, she sat outside her shelter, tasting a dish she had prepared from a variety of new ingredients. The flavors were rich and complex, a combination of textures, aromas, and tastes she had never experienced before. She smiled, realizing that she had turned a place of punishment into a home, a laboratory, and a stage for human creativity. Calypso 9 had tested her, but she had risen to the challenge. As she watched the stars twinkle faintly through the violet clouds above, Alara felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had survived storms, discovered new foods, built shelter, formed connections with alien creatures, and inspired humans across the galaxy. Her exile had become a journey of growth, learning, and triumph. Humanity's strength was not in avoiding challenges, but in facing them with curiosity, intelligence, and creativity. She had proven that humans could thrive anywhere. Alara closed her eyes for a moment, listening to the hum of the alien forest. She felt connected to Calypso 9, a part of its story as it was a part of hers. Tomorrow would bring new discoveries, new challenges, and new opportunities to experiment and create. She was ready. Her journey on Calypso 9 was far from over, and she knew that each step, each experiment, each meal would continue to teach her about the planet, about life, and about what humans were capable of achieving. The planet that had once been a symbol of isolation and danger had become a place of learning, creation, and triumph. Through observation, experimentation, and creativity, Alara had not only survived but had begun to thrive. Her story was a testament to the resilience, ingenuity, and spirit of humanity. She had turned a punishment into a triumph, proving that even in the most challenging environments, humans could adapt, learn, and flourish. Alara woke to a calm morning, the violet-green sky casting soft light across the crystalline formations around her shelter. Months had passed since her arrival, and the once hostile world of Calypso 9 now felt like home. She had transformed her shelter into a functioning base, learned the rhythms of storms, discovered countless edible plants, and established an unspoken bond with the creatures around her. Every day had been a lesson in adaptation, observation, and creativity, and she had grown stronger and more confident with each challenge. Her transmissions to Earth had turned from simple reports into detailed guides for survival and innovation. Scientists studied her notes with fascination, noting plant compositions, nutritional values, and preservation methods. Chefs marveled at her combinations of alien flavors, some of which could inspire cuisine in ways they had never imagined. Explorers watched with awe as she navigated the planet, proving that humans could survive and thrive where no one thought it possible. Alara had become a symbol of resilience and ingenuity, her story inspiring countless people across the galaxy. On this morning, she decided to explore a distant canyon she had noticed from a ridge. The canyon walls shimmered with crystal-like formations, and a thin river wound its way along the base. As she descended, she noticed clusters of plants growing along the banks, their colors bright and inviting. Some had spongy textures, others radiated a faint light, and a few had leaves that smelled sweet and earthy. She carefully harvested samples, noting their location and characteristics. Each new plant was a potential ingredient, a piece of the puzzle she was assembling in her culinary experiments. Back at her shelter, she began preparing a meal that combined her latest discoveries with ingredients she had grown familiar with. She experimented with roasting, steaming, and mixing, adjusting flavors and textures carefully. The result was a dish unlike any she had created before, a harmony of tastes that captured the essence of Calypso 9 itself. The soft sweetness of the luminescent fruits blended perfectly with the earthy, spongy plants, while the pulsing berries added a subtle tang. She tasted it slowly, savoring the complexity and balance. It was a triumph, a testament to her ability to adapt and create in an alien environment. Alara recorded every detail. Her sketches captured the shapes and colors of the plants, while her notes described flavors, textures, and possible combinations. She photographed each dish meticulously, preparing a transmission for Earth that would share not only her survival techniques but also the joy and creativity that had become a central part of her life. She titled her latest entry simply, "The Essence of Calypso 9, Humans Can Thrive Anywhere." The message was brief, but the impact was profound. The creatures she had grown familiar with approached cautiously, as they always did, drawn by the aroma of her cooking. She laid small portions for them, watching as they sampled the meal with careful curiosity. Some paused to gesture or look toward her, as if acknowledging the effort and care she had put into her work. Alara smiled, realizing that she had formed a subtle connection with life on this planet. Survival was no longer just about finding food or shelter. It was about understanding, respect, and collaboration, even across species. As the day progressed, she explored a nearby plateau. From there she could see the expanse of Calypso 9 in all its glory, valleys, rivers, forests, and crystalline cliffs stretching as far as the eye could see. She realized the planet was a living, breathing ecosystem, rich with possibilities. Every plant, every creature, every gust of wind had something to teach. Her heart swelled with pride and wonder. Humans had always explored the unknown, but here, on a planet designed to defeat them, she had discovered the truth. Ingenuity, observation, and creativity could overcome any challenge. Her thoughts turned to Earth and the people who had doubted her. The council that had exiled her had expected her to fail, to become just another statistic. But she had turned their punishment into opportunity. She had survived, thrived, and shared her discoveries. Her transmissions had inspired others to dream bigger, to explore further, and to believe in the power of human adaptability. She had become more than a survivor. She had become a teacher, a guide, and a symbol of human potential. Over the next several days, she focused on refining her techniques. She developed new preservation methods, combining heat, cold, and natural chemicals from the plants to create nutrient-dense meals that could last for months. She experimented with textures, discovering that some plants released unique flavors when dried or crushed, while others blended beautifully when fermented. Each experiment added to her growing knowledge, and she recorded every detail for Earth. She knew that one day, humans might colonize planets like Calypso 9, and her work could be the foundation for their success. One evening, as the twin suns set, casting long shadows across the alien terrain, Alara prepared a special meal. She combined all her discoveries: luminescent fruits, jelly-like pods, pulsing berries, glimmering pool plants, and a few newly harvested leaves and roots. She cooked them carefully, layering flavors, textures, and aromas to create a dish that was both nourishing and extraordinary. The aroma filled her shelter, drifting into the forest and drawing the creatures that had become her silent companions. They approached cautiously, sampling the food with care and seeming to respond positively. Alara tasted the meal slowly, savoring each bite. It was perfect, a culmination of months of observation, experimentation, and creativity. She documented it thoroughly, photographing the dish, sketching the plants used, and writing detailed notes about preparation, taste, and texture. She transmitted the information to Earth with a message that captured both instruction and inspiration. We can thrive anywhere. We can adapt, create, and find joy in the most unexpected places. Calypso 9 is proof of human ingenuity. Her journey had begun as a punishment, an exile meant to end her life, but it had transformed into something far greater. She had learned, adapted, and thrived. She had created food, formed connections, and shared knowledge. Humanity was capable of incredible things, and she had proven it. The following days were filled with continued exploration. She ventured into new valleys, discovered hidden groves, and located additional water sources. She experimented with combining previously untested ingredients, creating dishes that were more complex and flavorful than ever before. Each success was meticulously documented and transmitted to Earth. Her transmissions inspired scientists, chefs, and explorers alike, showing that humans could overcome even the most hostile environments through curiosity, creativity, and perseverance. During one expedition, she discovered a cave system that appeared rich with mineral deposits. She explored cautiously, noting the structure and properties of the rocks and soil. Some minerals could enhance flavors, she realized, or be used for preservation. She experimented with incorporating crushed mineral powders into her cooking, producing subtle changes in taste and texture that added depth to her meals. Each discovery expanded her understanding of the planet and its potential, reinforcing her belief that humans could thrive anywhere if they approached challenges with intelligence and creativity. The creatures of Calypso 9 continued to observe her. Over time, they became more confident, interacting with her more openly, and even following her on short explorations. Alara welcomed their presence, recognizing the value of cooperation and observation. She learned from their behavior, understanding patterns in the environment, predicting weather changes, and locating hidden resources. The bond she had formed was subtle but powerful, a reminder that survival often required understanding and respect for the world around her. Alara's transmissions became more comprehensive. She included not only recipes and observations, but also insights into plant chemistry, nutritional content, and preservation techniques. She shared strategies for constructing shelter, managing resources, and interacting safely with local creatures. Her reports became a blueprint for survival on alien worlds, demonstrating that humans could not only survive but also thrive, adapt, and create. She had transformed exile into opportunity, turning a punishment into a legacy. As weeks turned into months, her influence spread. Earth scientists referenced her findings in research papers. Chefs experimented with flavor combinations inspired by her discoveries, and students studied her transmissions as examples of ingenuity and resilience. She had become more than a survivor. She had become a teacher and an inspiration. Her story demonstrated that human curiosity, creativity, and determination could overcome even the most extreme challenges. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Alara prepared a final meal for the day. She combined all her discoveries into a dish that represented the essence of Calypso 9, the sweet, earthy flavors of the berries, the delicate glow of the luminescent fruits, the soft texture of the pods, and the subtle aroma of newly harvested leaves. She tasted it slowly, savoring each bite, reflecting on how far she had come. She had transformed a planet that was meant to be a tomb into a place of learning, creativity, and life. She transmitted the recipe to Earth, accompanied by a message that captured her journey and the lessons she had learned. They sent me to a place no one returned from. I have survived, adapted, and created. Calypso 9 is no longer a prison. It is a world full of possibility. Humans can thrive anywhere. We can observe, experiment, create, and inspire. Our curiosity and ingenuity are our greatest strengths. This is the human spirit. She felt a deep sense of accomplishment and connection. She had faced the impossible, adapted to it, and turned it into something extraordinary. Humanity's potential was limitless, and she had proven it. Alara closed her eyes, letting the hum of the planet wash over her. She thought about the humans who would follow in her footsteps, the discoveries they would make, and the meals they would create. She thought about the lessons of curiosity, creativity, and resilience that she had learned on Calypso 9. And she knew, with quiet certainty, that her exile had not ended her. It had transformed her into a symbol of what humans could achieve. Calypso 9, once feared and avoided, had become her laboratory, her home, and her canvas. She had survived storms, discovered new foods, built connections with alien creatures, and inspired humanity across the stars. She had turned isolation into opportunity, danger into creativity, and punishment into triumph. The planet was no longer a challenge to overcome. It was a place of endless possibility. As she drifted into sleep, she felt a sense of peace. She had faced the impossible and she had prevailed. Her journey on Calypso 9 was more than survival. It was a celebration of human ingenuity, curiosity, and spirit. She had turned a world that was meant to defeat her into a place of growth, discovery, and inspiration. And she knew that humanity, no matter the challenge, could achieve anything it set its mind to. Alara Miles, exiled to a planet no one returned from, had not only survived, she had thrived. She had created, learned, and inspired. Her story would live on, a testament to the power of human curiosity, creativity, and resilience. And as the twin suns of Calypso 9 rose once more, she smiled, ready for the next discovery, the next meal, the next opportunity to show that humans could turn even the harshest worlds into places of life, beauty, and possibility.